Your hosts are here, Sammie and Michelle. By the end of this podcast, you'll know them well. Adulting, navigating the journey of life. Careers to relationships, pain and strife. Put down the rule book, rethink the status quo. If there's another direction you wanna go, find purpose, passion and mastery in all that you do with Status Post Adulting.
Hey, Status Post Adulting fam, this is Sammie
and Michelle,
and you're listening to episode 85. Today, we're going to be talking about a little experience we had this past weekend, Labor Day weekend.
Yes, Sammie. We went through a little bit this weekend, and quite honestly, we were like, we can share it in the after show, but that felt a little bit like we were bearing the lead. Felt a little deceptive. And also, this is the best way to tell as many people as possible. So we're really excited to share this story with you and talk a little bit about how we're thinking through it, how we're processing it, that type of thing. Also, unrelated, shout out to the ladies at European Wax Center. In case you're listening, great experience with them. They remembered us and we gave them a bunch of stickers. So if you're listening, hey guys.
If you're a new listener from the European Wax Center, let us just say that European Wax Center is an efficient and excellent way to get waxed quickly for a reasonable price. And Michelle and I go there every time because that's the only way we can get things waxed.
Yes, and when I went there, the woman, she recognized, well, she thought I was Sammie, but she remembered all of these details and we haven't seen them in months, so we really appreciate it there. And this is not an advertisement. This is just a random side note. Where were we?
Exactly, Michelle. So as you guys may recall, we have moved to a small town and we live in a house that has a giant radio tower right next to the house, like on the property, like not even 2 feet away from our spare room. There is a ginormous radio tower that says peligroso, which means dangerous, high voltage, and we try to avoid it for that reason.
Yes. I don't know if we've given this context before on the podcast, but the house definitely gives vibes that the person who used to live here was preparing for the end of the world.
A prepper.
A prepper, as the people say. And there's a radio tower, there's like 3 sheds, he has like all these signs of like trying to discourage people. Honestly, part of the reason we thought this city, like this small town, was scary when we moved here was because this guy's house is so not approachable. It's a nice home, it's like a nice house, but yeah, point is he doesn't own it anymore. The realtor company owns it. And yeah, that's setting the stage because that's where we were Friday night.
Yes. It does literally say, like, beware of dog. There's bullet casings in the sheds. Like, you know, this guy was preparing for something. And we don't know what it was, but it does seem like he was a prepper. He is not our current landlord, though. Our current landlord is wonderful. They're the real estate company, and they have always been super good to us.
Yeah, they're super great. And so you may recall, if you've been listening to some of our past episodes, that there has been a lot of thunderstorms in this beautiful desert area that we're in. Riddle me that. We lost power a couple times. Actually, we may owe Starbucks an apology because the second time we lost power, we were able to go to Starbucks. So sorry, Starbucks, for saying that you would not help people out in the apocalypse. Seems like maybe that was a one-off thing.
So yes, there's been random storms. And the storms are interesting because, like, sometimes it looks perfectly normal and then all of a sudden you'll get like a storm warning notification on your phone and there's like a storm warning that hits like super fast. And then there's lightning, a lot of wind, thunder, flooding, and it's crazy.
Exactly. And so Friday night, Sammie comes out of the shower. She wraps herself in a blanket. She's chatting with me on the couch. We're actually having a really deep conversation because I was kind of in a bad mood on Friday. I've just been feeling a little bit dejected. I've been questioning a lot of things in my life. So we're having this really serious, intimate conversation. Our phones buzz, that classic triggering thunderstorm warning, dust storm warning, flash flood warning. We end up getting like 10 of these at once all the time now. And we start to see that there's a storm picking up outside, which, we're starting to get used to.
Yeah, Michelle. We were having a super deep conversation. As I mentioned on a previous episode, I've been going to therapy, plus I have my shamanic healer, and I've been learning a lot about the thoughts that come through my brain, and a lot that those thoughts can often be preoccupations about what other people will think about me, and how that can often guide my behavior away from my soul path. And Michelle and I were both talking about this, and we had really come to a great conclusion about how we had to let go of these preoccupations. Like, we had fully let it go. Like, we were on a very, very high vibration when the storm started to come in.
And all of a sudden, we hear a thump on our roof. And then another one.
I would call it a thump, and then I heard an immediate crunch. Like it was like a thump crunch.
A thud, a thump, a crunch, concerning. And Sammie and I think we freak out for a moment, and we look at each other, and we're like, what do we do? And Sammie's like,
I was like, we got to get out of the house.
We got to get out of the house. She stands up. Girl is naked. And we're like, oh my God, you're naked. And she's like, it doesn't matter. She grabs the blanket. She runs to the door. She grabs a jacket from the door, and she's like, I'm just going to take this. And I'm like, and I hesitate. And then I run to my room. I grab my PJ shorts. I'm like, oh, this doesn't work. And I grab something from my laundry bin. And I'm like, you need to get out of here. Whatever this is, it's fine. And I run back out, and I start to hesitate. I'm like, oh, I grab my keys. And I say something to Sammie. And at this point, she's out the front door.
That's exactly right, Michelle. I heard the thump, and I was thinking, what could that be? But either way, I was like, we have to get out. Just in case, we have to get out, figure out what it is. Even though I'm not clothed, we have to get out of here ASAP. And so I wrap myself in the blanket. I grab a jacket from the coat rack on the way out. And I'm opening the door. Meanwhile, I see Michelle go run back into her room. And I was just I was getting upset. I'm like, Michelle, come on, And then I opened the door, and it was unclear to me, but also it looked like hanging from the roof of our front porch, I see satellite and all these radio tower looking things. And I didn't understand, I was like, I don't know if maybe just that satellite fell or what happened, but I just knew that we really needed to get out, because maybe those initial crunches were just the initial crunch before it imploded on our house. So then I was like, Michelle, get out of the house right now. It's getting really upset. But I was also running out of the house ASAP.
It's true. And then that kind of whipped me into shape. I run out. I literally see the same thing. I see the metal. I'm like, holy crap. I even pause for a minute, and I'm like, should I lock the door? And I'm like, oh my God, you need to get out. Sammie's running to the car. Luckily, she grabbed her keys. I run after her. It's pouring rain. It's pitch black outside. And we're like, okay, let's just drive a little bit further. We drive up a little bit. Our freaking neighbor's fence is falling down. So we kind of turn our car around. It's pouring rain. All of a sudden, lightning cracks. We look past the house, and in the silhouette, we don't see anything. And I'm like, Sammie, I don't see the radio tower. Lightning strikes again, confirms, and we're like, holy crap. The radio tower just fell on our house.
Yes, that's when we realized the radio tower literally fell onto our house. And I was like, Michelle, call 911. And Michelle starts calling 911. And you guys, I've become into angel numbers. And before I moved to Blythe, the number that I kept seeing everywhere was 911. And 911, I was kind of alarmed by the number, and I was worried that it was a bad thing, but it's actually a really good sign that your spirits are with you. You're on your soul path. But I looked at the clock, and it was 9:11, and Michelle was calling 911 at the exact same time. And I was a brief moment of, oh my God, we're okay, we're safe, everything's protected. But at the same time, there is a giant radio tower on our house right now.
Yeah, Sammie's over here looking at angel numbers. Meanwhile, I'm freaking out because the radio tower is down, the fence is down. We're kind of near these huge palm trees. I was like, the roads are quickly flooding. Like, we don't really know what's going on. And I called 911. They end up sending a cop over.
Yes, Michelle calls 911 and they're like, were there any sparks?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Are there any fires? And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. Then I was like literally, thank God we got out of the house, because that's so true. You know, if something crashes into your house, even if that thing is not necessarily causing a problem, maybe it hits something. Like the radio tower really did almost hit the water heater, and that could have caused a fire. Like there's so many ways that a fire or a sparks can form in that kind of situation.
Yeah, when she said that, we were just like, we didn't even think about how bad this could be. I mean, we're a mix of adrenaline, I think, at this point. Like, both scared, but also just, like, so relieved. Because, like, honestly, the worst thing I could have imagined happening, like, I always hated that radio tower. And I was like, it's not going to fall. It's not going to fall. It's not going to fall. Meanwhile, here we are. Friggin' radio tower on our roof. And, like, we only processed that, like, 2 seconds before we ran out of the house. So it was just crazy.
And I will say, I do not like any kind of tower. I don't like power towers. I don't like radio towers. I do not like water towers. Like,
she hates water
towers. If you're
towers.
my friend, you may know that like I despise water towers because I literally fear that these things will fall. That is literally a fear. And actually, when we moved into this house with the radio tower, I was like, oh, like I don't love that thing's on the house. It could just fall.
Here we are.
Here we are.
So the police come. We run to them in the rain. He says he's going to call the city to have someone check it out. Our neighbor calls us. There's this like really sweet older couple across the street. And I guess the guy, she told us later, was like trying to like flashlight signal to us because he saw us run out in the rain.
I was like, she's like, I saw you run out. I was like, how much did you see?
Oh yeah. Also, after I called 911, we're like, okay, the police is coming. And then Sammie goes, I don't have any pants. And I like pull out the leggings. And I'm like, I got pants for you.
I was really glad in that moment that Michelle did get pants, even though she had to risk her life for it. And I was literally like, what if the house imploded? I'm naked outside. And they're like, where's your sister? And I'm like, she went to get me pants. And then she died.
I will say, in hindsight, that was a terrible decision. I do think like for a brief second, I was like, nothing has happened. I kind of did feel like we wouldn't get back in the house. But like Sammie was like, I guess maybe it was dramatic running out the house naked. I was like, no. I was wrong. I should not have gone back. Like I should have just grabbed my keys and gone out with you. But Sammie had clothes, thank God. But our neighbor, she called us. They kind of got us over. They're like, you can come to our house if you want to. But the police was like, you can wait. Like the city's coming. And then these guys come to like go and check out our house, basically.
Yes. So then the building inspector and another gentleman from the town come. They check out the tower, and then they have these really strong flashlights. So then we can really see the tower over our house. And that's just so freaky to look at because
it's like a broken chopstick over our house.
Yes, except a chopstick made out of metal and giant. And they've managed to call the owner of the tower, which is still owned by the previous owner. The same one with the sheds.
We think.
We don't know. So they're able to turn off the electricity to the tower, which is another thing I didn't think about. And they look at it and they're like, the house is supporting the tower right now. The tower did its job because I guess these types of towers are supposed to bend. They're supposed to give if they fall, apparently. And so the tower did bend, so it went over the house. It didn't put too much pressure on the house. He was saying that they're not actually that heavy, and we should be safe to go back in the house.
Yeah, he's like, oh, the tower did its job. I'm sorry, sir. I thought the job of the tower was to stay the heck up. Okay, so I don't know if I would say it did its job, but sure, okay. And he's like, oh, you guys can go back in the house. And I was like, we're going to go to a hotel tonight. Like, there is absolutely no way. And he's like, why? It stopped raining, which is also crazy. It did stop raining. But I was just like, I need to process what just happened. We literally don't even fully understand what is going on. I'm like, there is absolutely no way I'm going to have any sanity sleeping in this home tonight.
It's true. And, the people of our small town, I will say, they normalize a lot of things that in other places would seem crazy.
Yes, they are very unbothered.
They're unbothered. Like, they're the most unbothered people, which is a characteristic I really like about them. But, I'm a city mouse sometimes. And city mouse doesn't want to stay in a house with a giant radio tower on top of it that could implode to her doom. Because that just feels a little silly.
We were like, we're going to spend the night in a hotel. It's so funny, too, because, like, this is such a characteristic of our small town. But, like, anybody that has, like, one job also has, like, tangent 5 other jobs. So they're like, yeah, and if you have any issues with that, call the police station, which actually that's where he'll be, too. And I'm like, and then these shirts for, like, the fire department. Like, I literally think these guys are both the police and the fire station and the city officials. Like, they're doing everything. And he's just chatting. He doesn't even... They're the most unbothered. They're like, oh, yeah, no, it's a good neighborhood. You got some good people here. And he's like going on and on and on.
Yes. So they felt like we could go inside the house. But we, we're like, you know what? We'll go to a hotel. We're going to sleep better there. We thought. We go to the Best Western, which I usually love Best Westerns.
Wait, no. First. Remember, this is a pretty serious thunderstorm, right? So we're like, we're going to go to this hotel that we like in town. We go drive there, and everything down the street, which is the main street, like the only street, we look down, it is pitch black, hotel included. Thus, I was literally like, Sammie, I think there's a power outage, because there was not a light, like not a generator, like Taco Bell didn't have a light on, like it was pitch black.
I've never seen anything like it, because usually those places have generators, so I'm like, why is it so dark? As you may recall, I was at the previous hotel gathering with my Indian friends last time there was a power outage, and they all had generators. So I was like, oh, like this is a really nice hotel. I'm sure they have a generator. I don't know what's going on, but obviously we can't stay there.
Yeah, exactly. So we do go to this other hotel, the Best Western, and it's fine. Other people are checking in. I'm sure everybody got thrown off their path because I'm sure the roads are flooded because that's what happens. And we go to our room, and on that floor, like the fire alarm, like it's just beeping incessantly. Like beep, 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 beep.
Literally, there's a persistent beep all night long as we're trying to sleep. And I would wake up like every so often and be like, what's that? Like, and I'm still like in this haze of like, there's a tower at the house. I've got a lot of work to do that I didn't do. And then like also there's a beeping. It was just chaos.
Literally, I was like, well, I guess this reflects my psychosis right now. Anyway, but it was hard to sleep, but it was fine. I mean, at the same time, I was like, beeping is better than having no idea what's going on with our roof.
So the next morning, I wake up and then I'm immediately like, oh, I wonder if because there's a tower on our house, people will assume that we're not there. Which, I guess is not the obvious assumption in this town. But I was like, then we might get looters, so I'm like, I better go home and clean the house so it looks nice and like we live there and clean. And plus, I don't want all these people coming over and it'd be dirty. So I'm like, you know what? I got to go to the house as soon as possible to clean up.
Literally, Sammie woke up, first off, before breakfast was served. Like, she's like with the dude as he's setting it up. And she's like, she comes back to me and she's like, I'm going to go clean the house. And I'm so tired. And this beeping is driving me crazy still. And I was like, go ahead. Whatever needs to be done. And she literally leaves to go clean our apartment. Which, first off, it was fine. But yes, she did do a great job cleaning it though.
Thank you, Michelle. I go to the house to clean, and in the daylight, I see the entire tower over the house, and I really appreciate how insane it is that tower fell onto us. And it just looks so crazy. Like, there is a tower on our house. Like, people driving by the street are slowing down and gawking. It's just it's a sight.
Which actually, Sammie, that also reminds me. Quick aside, we did call our mom last night, and we got her at 11 p.m. by the time we got all this stuff over with. And we wake her up, and we're like, we're fine, but just so you know, the tower fell on our house. And she literally, first thing, she's like, I'm so happy that tower is gone. And we're like, it's
literally,
on the house.
I was like, did you manifest the tower falling on us? Because you need to be specific with the manifestations like we talked about in the manifestation episode.
She did not manifest it falling on us, but I think we all kind of were like, I really hate this tower. I wish it wasn't here. We didn't really think through how that could happen. So we had to let her know. I think she panicked, but on the phone, she's very calm with us. And she's like, okay. We're in a hotel.
Yes, good thing we got her when she was tired. When I'm cleaning, I'm like in the room right next to the tower, and then I see like the tower uprooted from the ground, and it's on like the teeniest, tiniest piece of concrete. Then I really comprehended. I'm like, dude, how did this tower not fall every other time there was a storm? It's just like a giant tower on a little microscopic piece of concrete compared to the size of the tower.
Yeah, we were kind of like, we thought there was more keeping this like a tree, like roots going on. Like, doesn't seem shocking. It seems shocking that it stayed up for so many years, quite honestly. And, that being said, we go back to the house. The guy said we could be there. We're like, I guess we can be here. And, we obviously know where the tower is. But I do tell some of my friends, I do share with one of my friends who's like very familiar with like structural engineering. Shout out Emma. And just to show her the photos, to be like, look at what just happened. And she called me and she's like, you should not stay in that house. And she was very insistent about it. She got like 5 of her other friends. She's like, honestly, like it's almost like I texted a world-renowned expert on this type of thing. And nobody was like, you should be in that home for a long period of time. And so we decided that they were probably right.
Yes. Thanks to Michelle, we are randomly friends with a lot of the structural engineers and civil engineers who were in San Francisco taking care of earthquake-like stuff, and none of them recommended that staying in the house was a good idea, which kind of was like, yeah, you know what, now that you say it out loud, makes a lot of sense. We were kind of thinking that, but we were kind of like, okay, maybe we'll just kind of like keep an eye out. The tower's here. We just won't stand under that.
We literally were like, well, I guess we'll see if something happens, which does bring up the issue that like when we go to bed, what the heck are we supposed to do? And honestly, like I was by no means thought I was going to sleep well at night.
I had actually come home and was so tired that I had taken a nap on the couch. I had taken a nap on the couch after I got home. And I literally was waking up like every hour. And I was like, what was that sound? I was like, what? I was like in a state of anxiety without even realizing it. And we kind of realized, like, especially after what Emma and all her friends said, we're like, you know what? We obviously can't sleep here, because also if we sleep there and a storm comes through, we won't necessarily wake up to that. So it might be too late when we notice that we should be like evacuating the house.
Yeah, we were definitely starting to realize maybe nothing is going to happen, but also like it's just a huge liability for us to be in the home. So we decided to move out of it. We ended up contacting our landlord. He was super supportive about everything. And they're going to remove the tower tomorrow. So things are moving forward, but we're not in our home.
I will say my landlord was super great. Like, I was like, yeah, I was in a hotel last night, but tonight I'm going to be in a hotel again. And he was like, oh, is it because the tower is on the house? And I was like, yeah. And he really understood, and he took a lot of initiative, even though he wasn't necessarily get responses from like other people in town. And it is Labor Day weekend. He took a ton of initiative to help us get this tower off our house as soon as possible. So it will be removed tomorrow, hopefully. So we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everyone else up until that point was like, well, it's Labor Day weekend, so hopefully someone will get back to you Tuesday. So it was nice that he was really on top of it. And, obviously, your girls went to church Sunday morning because we were like, you know what? We need some spiritual positivity. We need to clean up the air. Like, we were like, there's no way. Like, we need to go.
Mm-hmm. And, the thing about going to church in a small town is church is super relevant. Our priest during the homily was like, and you know what this message really relates to? The dramatic event we all experienced on Friday. I was like, what?
It was really like Friday, 9 p.m. We were like, is he talking about us right now?
It's like, do you know our lives? I mean, he could have drove past our house.
We're like standing up. We're like, you're right, guys. It's us. Just kidding. Turns out he also lost electricity.
Yes, he was talking about how he had to wait for the air conditioner to turn back on with the power being out because there was a funeral Saturday morning, and that was a struggle.
keep in mind, we are going through a heat wave right now as well.
Yes.
Like, we are in the literal hottest place in the country right now.
It's a little interesting that it's a heat wave and we also have these storms coming through. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I literally thought because of the heat wave, I was like, oh, perfect. That must mean that these like friggin' monsoon offshoots are done. No. But it was really nice because of that, because we were in church and like, I think everybody went through it. Like everyone, a lot of people were affected by this storm or one of the storms coming up to it. Our priest specifically as well. And so it was really specific. It was a good time to hear that message. I got a little emotional. I'm not going to lie. I think I've been like not processing it very well. Like the first day I was like, okay, well it happened and now we're alive. And then the second day I was really stressed because it was like, actually, this is pretty serious. Like we shouldn't be in a house where our roof could implode in any moment.
Yes, Michelle was very stressed out and she definitely wanted to not stay in the house. For me, that was not as easy of a decision because I was like, oh, the hotel's kind of expensive. But after all her friends, the engineers were like, no, don't stay in the house. And I was like, you know what? No, we probably should definitely not stay in the house then.
It was not hard. I will give Sammie credit. It was difficult because we're like, are we being paranoid or like, is this like a serious problem? Somebody specifically did tell us that it was okay. However, they also told us in the middle of a night, in a storm, like it's not, like I trust them. But, you know, sometimes people are very confident. They're not the ones who have to sleep there. So,
yeah, and I think they were also trying to be accommodating too, because, you know, if they say that we can't stay there, then we're going to have to find a hotel. Then our landlords are going to have to cover. It's like a whole cycle, you know, as soon as they say that we can't stay there, it's going to create a whole bunch of problems for everybody. So I get why, you know, maybe they wouldn't want to say that. And hey, maybe it is safe, you know, it is being held up by the roof, I would say. But it's just not comfortable to sleep there for sure.
Yeah. And I will say, I mean, I think through this and like having time to reflect and like sitting in church and thinking about it and just really thinking through all this stuff, like, it's crazy that like Friday I was just like upset about like the most random, inconsequential things. Like I know it happens, but at the same time, you know, there are so many things in life where it's like, it's just money. It's just a house. It's just
people's perceptions of us, deviating us from our soul truth.
Like, it really just felt like it's like, you know, like there's so many important things that we're supposed to do in this world. There's so many important things for each and every one of us to do in this world. Like, I really do think we have a purpose. I think we know our purpose. I think at different stages of our life, we can either lean into it or not. But at the same time, like, we get so in our own head trash. And I don't know, it just depends on your situation, obviously. But like, we're actually, like, for us, like, we're so lucky. Not only that we had like the financial stability to make a lot of decisions easier this week, but also just like the fact that like our neighbors were super supportive. Like we have a really good community here. Like people have been looking out for us. People have been really, really kind. Unfazed, a lot of people. But partially because every time we're like, oh, a tower fell on our house. And they're like, oh yeah, a tree fell on the nursing home. And we're like, oh, well, not just us. It's a lot of people. And so, I don't know. It was just a crazy experience. And I'm really grateful, I think, at this point to just be happy that we're here and we're alive and that like this could have played out in so many different ways and like just counting my blessings, basically.
Yeah, Michelle, it was definitely an interesting experience. I think the biggest thing is just like when our neighbor, Irma, she's the older couple, we were at their house the next day and they were like, you know, we saw the tower after this morning, you know, in the daylight. And it's just such a blessing that you guys are alive. And we're like, yes, it's true. I mean, the tower really could have went through the whole home or something more drastic or caused a fire or, you know, we could have been trapped in there. And luckily we were able to get out and we're safe and everything's okay. And it's just shows you how quickly things can just drastically change.
Yeah, exactly. And like sometimes you can't control those things. Like we got really lucky and that's just life, I think.
The number one takeaway from this incident is keep a spare outfit in your car. You know, I was thinking about it and I'm like, there are actually so many reasons to keep a spare outfit in your car. Running out of your house naked is one of them. But also, like, you go to the store, something spills on you. I remember one time I was at the gas station, a bunch of gasoline spilled on me. And I was like, not only do I smell like gasoline, but I'm a huge flame risk right now. It's like fire hazard walking around. And so maybe if you want something tangible from this episode, it is keep that extra outfit in the car.
I totally agree with you, Sammie. I think I'm going to have a bunch of weird things that I do, my own prepper stuff, because of the stuff that we've gone through living here. Just knowing that you don't always have access to things like water, you don't always have access to things like electricity or your home.
Like, sounds like we're talking about India.
You know, some places aren't prepared for that. It's us a lot of times. Like, we're so used to having so many of these things. And so it is good to just prepare yourself. I think when I was younger, I used to be like, whatever, nothing's going to happen. And like, I've lived in so many places now where stuff does happen. Even in big cities, even in small towns, like it's just a lot, like the world is changing and we don't necessarily always have the infrastructure to support it.
And I am really happy that I did not buy that house. I was literally plotting on buying the house. I was like, I'm going to talk to the landlord. I'm going to tell them how much I want to put down. I started my Paula Pant, your first rental property real estate class. And thank you, Paula Pant, because that class has been such a blessing. One thing I realized doing that class is like, I love learning about real estate. I would never want to do it. Maybe I would want to have a home just to have one home, but I really appreciated when I took that class and I'm like, I'm not the type of person that wants to spend time on that. Like, I would rather just go to my current job instead of work on that. I'm like, I like index funds, Index funds are never going to fall on your house in the middle of the night. Yeah, sure, they drop, but you just sit there when that happens. You don't do anything. A house, it's just too much work.
Yes, and this is not financial advice. This is just how we're feeling in this moment, but I agree. I'm sure our landlord had a very difficult weekend this weekend as well for a lot of different reasons, but you know what? Ding dong, the tower is gone. We're in a much better position because of it. Like, the whole friggin' neighborhood is thrilled, I think, because it's a little obscene that somebody thought.
Talking to our neighbors, people did not like that tower. I do think that what actually happened in a spiritual sense is that Michelle and I had reached a certain level of enlightenment in the thoughts that we were just having. And we were on such a high vibration that like nothing negative could be around us. And then the tower got uprooted and fell onto our home. That's just my theory.
And that's how we're sleeping at night, people, okay? So we don't want to hear from you.
We don't want nobody telling us that we got a curse on the family. We've heard that. Yes, we have other curses on the family. We're trying to get rid of those, okay? We have known curses. But I do not want anybody saying that this is a curse because I don't feel cursed. I feel good, okay? So maybe cursed people, I think they feel cursed.
We're fine. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening this week. We thought it would be a little bit crazy to just tack this on at the end of our show. Obviously, we have a special relationship with all of you, and so we wanted to let you know what was going on in our life. If we seem like very, what's the word?
Beautiful?
Like, beautiful on the inside or outside? Like, no. What?
Lovable?
If we seem like life has changed for us, I don't know. I don't know how these things happen, but maybe it will. Maybe things change. I don't know. But regardless, thank you guys for listening. We love you. We'll be back next week. We're talking about Sparketypes. Don't miss it.
And if you guys have not joined our newsletter, now's the time because that's where you're going to get the insider picks on this roof falling. I mean, if you like disaster porn, if you like disaster porn, this is one for you that's maybe hits home a little bit.
I'll say that a little bit differently, Sammie. In case you're wondering exactly what happened, I think the pictures tell the story. Obviously, we don't want to put that everywhere, but join our newsletter. In a couple weeks, we'll send it out. Plug City.
Mm-hmm. Or if you want to be like everybody else who's just driving by our house slowly and then turning around and driving by again.
Stopping, taking photos. We're a scene in town. People are unfazed, but not the people who drive by our home.
They're unfazed, but at the same time, they gotta get a pic with it.
We don't blame them. We're the same type of people.
But most importantly, be sure to join us next week as we put down the rule book and rethink the status quo.